Welcome to episode 126 of How About the Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor. Joanna, Matt, and Andrew, and it's a very glorious day in the world of college basketball. Selection Sunday, the night we're recording this. We have a bracket. The Huskies are in the field. I feel like we all knew that was going to be the case. Probably where we all thought they'd be in an 8-9 game. They are the 8th seed in the West region, taking on number 9 Oklahoma on Friday in Raleigh. The 1 seed for the Huskies, I'm sure you've all seen, is the Florida Gators, the 4th number 1 seed, but probably one of the more dangerous ones, I'd say. Definitely underrated. Their 16 seed there is Norfolk State. I'll still off the whole bracket, then we'll just hop right into this. For at least just for our region, we have the 4 I just mentioned. Memphis, a team we already saw, as the 5 seed taking on 12 seed Colorado State. 4 seed Maryland taking on 13 seed Grand Canyon. You have Missouri Drake in the 6-11 game. Texas Tech taking on UNC Wilmington in the 3-14 game. A thrilling game in Providence, Kansas, Arkansas. That's Bill Self versus John Calipari. And then St. John's is in our region as the 2 seed taking on 15 seed Omaha. So we'll just hop right into this. This isn't going to be that long of an episode. What's your guys' initial reaction to the region, both as a whole and really UConn's first weekend draw?
I mean, this bracket, I feel like I've been saying this since the season really started that there's no clear cut national champion. I still don't think there is because this year has been a really weird year for college basketball. You could say the same about so many teams. Two different AP number ones went to unranked at some point, us in Kansas. So I feel like this year is completely wide open. Last year I feel like we definitely had the edge. I mean, anybody can win in March. That's what happens. But I feel like we had the edge last year. But this year, I still really don't know. I feel like we definitely got a really tough bracket. Having St. John's, Florida, even Oklahoma is going to be a tough game to start. But Memphis, Maryland, Missouri, even though I have them getting upset. But it's just we got a pretty tough bracket, but I'm here for it. Give us everybody that's hard to beat because I don't want an easy path. So I'm here for it.
It's definitely, one of the tougher parts of this larger bracket. We have some real competition on our hands, and seeing that, we got put in the same bracket as St. John's over here, made me a little nervous. I've seen them beat us twice this year, and I feel like I've been saying it every single year. We've been fortunate to not run into a Big East opponent in either of these runs because they know us like the back of their hand. I mean, we've played some pretty steep competition over the past few years, but nothing has scared me more than running into Creighton in the Elite Eight or whatnot. And seeing St. John's here, obviously some other competition. Memphis beat us earlier this year. Florida is a top 5 school in the country. Maryland puts together some great games, and Drake is one of the bottom 10 like below 10 seeds that I like this year. I think they have a great squad, and there's competition at every angle here, and it's definitely going to be competitive. But like Andrew said, you don't want a cakewalk ever. You want the best competition. So I want to see Hurley and the boys pull out some wins here.
Yeah, luckily, to your point on St. John's, Huskies would have to win 3 games. St. John's would have to win 3 games for that matchup to happen. Could that very much happen? Yes, but there's a lot that can go down. It's called March Madness for a reason. But I agree, this region is definitely probably the toughest. Maybe just from our perspective as UConn fans looking at this, looking at all the other teams compared to the rest. I mean, 2 years ago in 2023, we were in the West as well. That was also deemed the region of death. There was Gonzaga, UCLA, Kansas, Arkansas, all those teams. And we ran through that region like it was nothing. Not saying we're doing that this year, but I feel like Dan Hurley dominates the NCAA tournament. I mean, I saw a stat and I haven't fact checked it, but I believe what I read. If we win this first game versus Oklahoma, that'd be 13 consecutive NCAA tournament wins, which would tie the record set by one of the Duke teams, maybe in 1990 or something like that. I forget what year, but for the most consecutive NCAA tournament wins since the bracket expanded to 64/68 teams. So Hurley knows what he's doing in this tournament. He gets an Oklahoma team who obviously it doesn't matter, but he saw Oklahoma in the tournament and he was at URI, and with URI beat Trae Young in Oklahoma. That doesn't matter because completely different everybody on those teams. But little fun fact, we're not doing an Oklahoma preview in this episode. We're gonna save that for later in the week, closer to the game. We're mostly focusing on this bracket. But what's your guys' thoughts? And this is looking ahead, but this is what you have to do in a bracket preview with a potential matchup with the Florida Gators in that second round in Raleigh.
Yeah, Florida's a tough school. One of our previous guests, Jay Billis, came on last episode. If you haven't seen that, I would definitely say go watch that now. But familiar foe there on Florida with Walter Clayton. Faced him at Iona 2 years ago. He kind of gave us a hard time there in that first half, eventually pulled away. But you can't deny the talent on this Florida team. Elijah March and Will Richard, Walter Clayton, all fantastic players. These are guys that you can't really take lightly, especially in a rough SEC conference, finish second in that conference. So, um, you need to come out ready. I feel like I nobody's really talked about this, but in my mind, I think Hurley holds some stuff for these times. I don't think he's always got his A game on when he's coaching in the regular season. I think he kind of puts some place to the side, puts him in his back pocket for times like this. With the season that we've had this year, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around beating the number one seeded Florida. But I mean, if there's anything Dan Hurley has shown us in March, it's that he can beat anybody.
Florida can have all the talent in the world. And you know what they don't have? The best coach in the country, because we've got him. I don't think Florida's coach is really that great, personally. I don't think that he necessarily is ready for March Madness. I think Florida's a very talented team. I do agree with Jay that they're the most complete team, but I don't think they're poised to make a run, especially if they run into us, because we have the experience and the talent. We're not an untalented team. We've got the experience and the talent and the coaching. So this might be biased and I might be clowned for this, but I'm going to take us over them in the second round.
Yeah, I'm not turning this into a Florida preview because the omens there would not be good at all. But Walter Clayton, the guy we've seen before, he's been great all year. You mentioned Martin, who's been in the Final Four before. There's definitely tournament experience on this team, but this is a team that, sure, they just won the SEC tournament too. They're a one seed for a reason. But I just feel like last year I don't even remember, did they win that Colorado game? It was like 102 to 100. I don't remember who won. But whoever won that game lost the next game. So they didn't go deep last year with a very similar core. I know Clayton was there, Richard, Alex Condon was there. Very similar core last year. And they didn't really go too far. Obviously, much different this year. But maybe that's the team to beat in this region. I don't know if it is. Who do you guys think, or who do you think is going to give UConn the most trouble? And I hate phrasing it that way. Who do you think is, if it's not UConn, is going to win this West region?
Going to be St. John's. In my honest opinion, I could see them very easily making it out of this division regardless. I just it's hard to find a team in this bracket who I can see coming out and beating Rick Pitino and St. John's. This is a little bit of a coming out party for them. This is the first time they've been this competitive, and I don't know how long. They have the players to do it. They have the guard depth. They look a little bit like us, from previous years. They have the great guards, the tall guards, and a tough coach. And I think that's what you kind of need to win in March. I like Florida. I really do. I think this is very deep. I don't think, they'll get by Omaha. I don't think Kansas will cause them much trouble. And then from there, I mean, who's going to beat them? I don't really see this as a who's going to beat Florida. I see this as a who's going to beat St. John's kind of conference. And out of, all the teams here, they definitely scare me the most.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I know I don't do this. We have breaking news. Tip times came out. Andrew, I was telling you how I thought we'd be the early game, the noon tip, because they want Duke for the late game. Now they want Duke early. UConn, Oklahoma is the latest game in Raleigh. 9:25 Eastern scheduled to tip. That's after the Florida game, so it'll probably be a little later than that. But so yeah, I was completely off with my guess of we'd be playing early. We were playing very late, but you guys, I mean, if you have any thoughts on that, you can give them. But unless Andrew, you can just go right into your pick for the
I
region.
mean, that's awesome for me because if anybody watching doesn't know, which nobody probably does, I go to school in South Carolina, so now I can definitely make that trip if I want to. That'll be a decision. But anyway, back into the things that matter. Matt, you mentioned that St. John's is going to get by Omaha, and I'm not here to say that they're not going to, but I think that second matchup is going to be a little tough for them, tougher than people think, because they're going to have to face either Arkansas or Kansas, and those two teams very well coached. But I think that would be you can't just overlook that. You can't overlook that matchup because they're two very talented teams. Also, they've both got the talent to match up with St. John's. I think I would give St. John's the edge over Arkansas, but if they have to play Kansas, I don't know. I really don't. So I'm gonna. It's kind of I'm not really gonna pick a who's gonna win this side of the bracket, but I think if St. John's has to face Kansas, that's gonna be a really good and really tough game for the Storm. But if they get by them with no problem, then they're gonna win the whole thing. Honestly,
We've, talked a lot about you know, this tournament is deep. I believe that this is one of the deepest tournaments that we've had in a while. But towards the end of it, I think we're going to see a lot of chalk. I think we'll get into it a little bit more, but we will have some upsets. But I wouldn't be that surprised if the Final Four was like all 1 through 5.
And I, just to mix it up, I do believe St. John's is the team to beat in this region. If I were to make, I haven't made my bracket yet, but probably be in my final four, honestly. My non-UConn winning it all bracket, because of course the Huskies are going to three-peat. But to mix it up, I'll go the Crab Five with Maryland. I mean, I feel like they're getting a little underrated here because they're not much more outside of that starting lineup, but that's a very good starting lineup. I've been following them all year in the Big Ten. They were seconds away from playing in the Big Ten title game today. They lost at the buzzer to Michigan, who ended up winning the whole thing, which was surprising in itself. But I feel like Maryland, who are they playing? They're playing Grand Canyon. They could easily lose that game to Grand Canyon, but I feel like they win that one. Who's the five? I don't have the bracket in front of me. Who's that five? Oh, this is terrible.
Memphis.
It is Memphis. I don't think Memphis is going to win that first game. So I feel like Maryland could fairly easily advance to the Sweet 16, and from there, anything can happen. But so yeah, Maryland's my pick. You guys got any in this region? First off, do you have any upsets you're looking at? I know I just mentioned I don't think Memphis is going to pull it out, but you guys got any?
Adios, Mizzou. I'm taking Drake. Enough said.
I'm going with Drake too, 100%. I also wouldn't be that surprised if UNC Wilmington came out and got an upset. They're a well-coached team. I believe that, they made it here. They've had good years in the past. I'm kind of going off vibes. I feel like that's the only thing you can really do, but I do know that they're a very well-coached team, and they make it difficult for you to beat them. I mean, like I said, going off entirely vibes. I don't have too much information on it, but I just have a weird sneaking suspicion that could be a big upset here in this region at least.
And I do, like I said, I think Colorado State can beat and will beat Memphis. Memphis has not played really any good competition since December, and I think that will show. They could also, like I'm going to say this every time, they could go on a run, Memphis, and be in the Final Four. But I agree with the Drake pick as well. I feel like they didn't win last year, and everyone thought they were. This year they're going to get back against Missouri. But looking at the entire bracket, and I'm not going to list them all off. I don't want to do that to myself because that's a lot of teams. Are there any surprises to you in the rest of the bracket? Maybe it's where a team's seated or if a team got in. I know that we could talk about that all day, but any major surprises with the initial look at the bracket?
I want to talk about the Big East for a second. It's not much of a surprise. This should have happened last year, but we got 5 teams in it. Xavier kind of snuck in there to the last 4 in, but honestly, good for us. I think this kind of just speaks volumes to what happened last year, kind of how we're going into this year. I feel like the seedings were a little weird. I'm looking at them. I'm trying to pull them up right now. We got the 8. St. John's got the 3. Marquette got a 7, and what did Creighton get? A 9. I mean, kind of putting us all in the middle there. I thought St. John's should have been a 2 or maybe even a 1, but I digress. I just believe that the Big East, we got our love this year, but we're always looking for more.
Yeah, going into the day, I feel like I saw a lot of places, bracketologists have UConn, Marquette, and Creighton all on that 8 line. Obviously, it probably wasn't going to end up that way, but Creighton, the team of the 3 that advanced to the Big East final, is the team that is the lowest seed, and they got screwed, which good for them because of what happened in that Big East game at the end. But I mean, they're going to Lexington to play Louisville, who Louisville got screwed too, in a sense that they've played in the ACC title game. They only lost, what, 7 games all year, and they're an 8 seed. That's tough for them, but they get to play in their home state, and they're probably going to beat Creighton in that first game. But surprise for me is that North Carolina is in the field. It's just because it's just so inconsistent what the committee's doing because North Carolina does not deserve to be in the field. They've won one quad one game, 1 in 10 in quad ones. But last year we couldn't sneak one of our teams like Seton Hall or Providence into the field, and they had quad one wins. So I don't really understand that logic behind it. It's just frustrating. There's no consistency there. I'm glad Xavier got in. If Xavier didn't get in and UNC did, I feel like the Big East nation would riot around the NCAA for that because UNC has not really done much. They had a great opportunity to defeat Duke without Cooper Flag. They didn't do it. It's just I feel like that's a team that they'll probably win that first game versus San Diego State because they're trending down. But I don't remember who that sixth seed is, but I think it's Ole Miss. I feel like Ole Miss is going to win that game fairly easily against UNC.
Another thing that kind of surprised me was Kentucky. What did they end up with, a 3 seed against Troy? I like Kentucky. I think they have a great squad, but again, I mean, very inconsistent this year. I think there were teams better having them and St. John's did get the 2. I don't know why I said the 3. Just fixing that up, but um yeah, Kentucky has a 3. I don't know, it just threw me off. That might be a little upset watch too. I think they're a little fraudulent. They don't have um, they have Otega Owe, who's a fantastic player, but I just don't think they're really deep enough. I don't know. I think this year, like I said, there's a lot of upset potential, but I do think towards the end of it, we will see the cream kind of rise to the top. So, um, yeah, Kentucky had a 3. I don't know. I just feel like I had to point that out.
Yeah, Kentucky's a team that had a lot of high quality wins. They also lost their fair share. 22-11 is that 3 seed, but I feel like they have a fairly easy draw to go deep in this tournament. I know they could lose to Troy, but after that, they'd play either Illinois or Texas Xavier, so that very well could be Xavier's round of 32 matchup should they advance that far. And I think we're almost done here. I said it's gonna be a shorter episode. You guys got any? We know we talked about our region specifically. You guys got any upsets you think that or teams that can make a surprise Cinderella run in the bracket as a whole, not just the West region?
The UC San Diego Trojans are gonna make the Sweet 16. I'm sure of it. They were one of 5 teams in the nation to win 30 games this year. Sure, they didn't play in a top 4 conference, but I mean they did have some good quality wins. They beat Utah State pretty recently, and they have great players all over the floor. Um, Tite Jones, he has a tough name. Aniwania Tite Jones.
Anowaniwa Taint Jones. He's a bucket.
He's a bucket. He averaged 20 and 6 this year. He's a great player and might be one of those fun little March players that we look back on in a few years. And Hayden Gray, 32 minutes a game, averages over 3 steals. Like I feel like they could just slop a game up against anybody and come out with a tough win. I'm very confident in them. Who do they have in the first round? They got Michigan. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they came out with that 5 win. And then if you look below them, Texas A&M and Yale, another upset. I mean, that could be possible. I really think UC San Diego is going to be one of those teams this year that kind of goes far as a 12 seed that maybe we don't really expect.
The Alabama Crimson Tide are going to lose to the St. Mary's Gales in the second round because St. Mary's is going to slow them down so much that they have no idea what's going on, and they're going to force up shots, and St. Mary's is going to beat them. Now, I know Jay Billis said that St. Mary's is the team that he would pick, but after seeing this bracket, I legitimately think that I will be picking them to beat Alabama in my bracket because I think they're going to slow them down, and it's not something that Alabama's ever seen. So I think that St. Mary's is going to get it done over Alabama. I don't know about the rest of the bracket, but I think they do knock off Alabama, send them home early.
Yeah, Grant Nelson is banged up. I saw he's seeing a knee specialist today when you're watching this to determine when he'll be back, but I also saw it wouldn't be too long. And one last point on what Matt said. Imagine an Anawana St. Jones versus Sadiko Iban Ayo Final Four matchup. St. John's versus UCSD. That would be elite, those two names. But my Cinderella pick, and it would mean that Matt's can't happen, is the Yale Bulldogs, who are the 13 seed up in that South region. We've seen them do it before. They beat Auburn last year. This year they're playing Texas A&M, who I feel like is worse than Auburn was last year. I feel like A&M is a high seed. They have some quality wins, but mostly a high top four seed because they play in the SEC and have all these quad one wins that they pick up because everyone wins a quad one win in the SEC. I was at the Ivy League title game today. I've been to maybe 5 or 6 Yale games this year. They're the real deal. They make shots, they guard. Bez Mbang is the best defensive point guard in the country in my mind, not just mid-major basketball overall. John Poulikitis, we saw him in the tournament last year getting buckets. He's going to do that. Nick Townsend is going to be a name on everyone's radar over the next few weeks and games because he's a guy who can just take over, undersized big man. I just know a lot about Yale. I could talk about him all day. I feel like they're going to win that first game. I think they're going to beat either UCSD or Michigan, which that'd be elite. The Danny Wolf versus Yale battle with the former Bulldog there. I feel like they don't win another game after that, but second weekend Yale is what I'm looking for.
I wanted to kind of close it out with the Huskies here and make like a Husky point just to kind of close the video. We haven't talked about it at all, but the ending to that Creighton game I'm sure left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. Andrew specifically was very upset about it, but I doubt that there's anybody in the whole world that it left a more sour taste in than Danny Hurley's. I can't imagine it. Uh, like if anything were to happen, I would rather it be that because I just feel like Dan Hurley's coming out now mad, embarrassed. Like that's kind of embarrassing. You know, you lose to Creighton in that semifinal. I mean, that's not embarrassing, but kind of like letting them just dunk on you. I mean, it sucks. That's not something that's supposed to happen to us. We're supposed to win these games, but um I mean, I think these guys are pumped up. I don't know. Like, part of me feels a little more would definitely feel a little more motivated after something like that happened compared to us just going out sad in the semifinal and that being that. I hope that lights some sort of fire under us to where we kind of get in that zone, that this March Madness zone that we've been in for 2 years in a row now, and we kind of just take over.
I agree. Yes, Matt said I was very upset. I was just mad because I thought like Hassan Diarra said, it was disrespectful to the game. In general, the dunk, like you know what, you want to show off for a flashy dunk, whatever, and then you pull yourself up on the rim. Like, I mean, that kid's clearly never won anything before. First of all, and second of all, I can't wait for Creighton to watch the rest of the tournament from their couch because if I'm not wearing this hat during the tournament, I'm wearing a Louisville Cardinals hat because I'll be the biggest Louisville Cardinal fan when they play against Creighton. You know, I always usually try and root for Big East teams, not Creighton. Go Louisville.
And I don't really have many thoughts on the whole dunk situation. I wasn't able to watch it live because I was sulking because Quinnipiac still can't get to a MAC final and lost to Iona. But I'll just say one thing about that. Liam McNeely should not have said when he accepted Rookie of the Year, I'll see you all Saturday, because on Saturday he was on a bus. So usually anytime you say stuff like that, it backfires. But I agree. I feel like the Huskies, they're a tournament team in a sense that like they have their best play come in the tournament. I feel like we can really see guys like Aiden Mahaney. He showed great signs in that Big East tournament. He scored 7 points one game, six the other. I forget which one was which, but he's showing he can be out there for extended minutes in tournament style settings. So I feel like he's going to be huge for this team. Jalen Stewart played some big minutes. There were some poor performances from guys like Caravan in that Creighton game. But I feel like all in all, this team clicks in March, and I think it's not going to be a surprise to us, but I feel like some teams or some people that count out the Huskies because they're having a down year, are going to be really surprised by the performance we put on this week.
And none of it really makes sense at all. I mean, you look back to the season that we had 2 years ago, we were very good, but we were not favorites to go on and win the whole tournament. Even the games that, we thought were going to be close games. We came up against Arkansas, we came against Gonzaga, we came against St. Mary's, Miami, San Diego. These were all blowouts. These weren't like close games. And that's not just talent coming together. There's something a little bit deeper and something more going on there with Hurley coaching in March. I really feel like it. It's hard to fade the Huskies. It's hard to kind of like just have them out of the tournament when Dan Hurley is their coach and they've had this kind of success. I don't see a world where, we just come in and just get blown out of the building. I just can't see it happening. So, remain competitive, stay in these games. We don't have to win every game by double digits, but you got to make it as far as you can.
And we will talk more about that matchup with Oklahoma later this week. Like I said, we'll do a formal preview of that. I got to study up on the Sooners. All I know about them is that they won 6 regular season SEC games. So do with that what you will. But yeah, that'll do it here for episode 126. Really, our whole bracket overview. Until that preview, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned.